Hello again, friends, and welcome to another edition of If This Car Could Talk. Today we're taking a closer look at the 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle Malibu, the SS models, and the El Camino. The Chevelle series and all of its model names and sub-series over the years have always been popular, both with consumers when they were new and collectors and enthusiasts now. It's not hard to understand. Beautiful styling in its simplicity, the perfect sized car, huge aftermarket parts support, and club and website information that are both interesting and prolific to learn everything there is about these cool mid-sized cars, or those looking for specific information to complete a restoration or improve their cars. The Chevelle first hit Chevrolet dealer showrooms in the fall of 1963 as the new 64 models were becoming available. Its design was called the A-body in GM circles at the time. This platform also covered many different models offered throughout the years by other divisions from the General. As more models in different size and price ranges reached the market, big cars no longer dominated the new car segment. The Chevelle came along at the perfect time, and it was quite handsome in its styling. The variety of different models available was the two-door hardtop, a convertible, 2- and 4-door sedans, 2- and 4-door wagons, and a new performance-oriented model known as the Chevelle SS. Even the El Camino had its niche market. The El Camino offered an SS option for the first time in 1968. By offering a long list of available colors and interior motifs, along with different powertrains and a huge option list, people could truly get the perfect vehicle to suit their particular needs. The Chevelle series lasted until the end of the 1977 model year. First-gen cars were the 64 through 67 models, the second-gen 68 through 72, and the third-gen's larger 73 to 77 cars. Well, if you didn't know the story of the Chevelle, that basically gets you up to speed to the 1970 models we'll be discussing today. Of course, there's a plethora of reference information on all three generations of Chevelles to be found online and in reference books too. Since a video like this cannot possibly cover every aspect of these cool cars, the viewer can easily find more specific information for him or herself. For 1970, all bodies were assembled by Fisher, a subsidiary of GM since they first gained majority control in 1919 with 60% ownership, and finally in 1926 when GM purchased the other 40%. In the totally restyled Chevelle series cars, the front fascia sported a new grille, becoming a bit more convex in design along with a horizontally split grille. The front bumper had no slots, and rectangular parking lamps were positioned directly below the quad headlamps in the bumper. The swept-back front fender look of 1968 and 9 was gone, replaced by a more rigid design. An upper feature line ran from above the headlight level to the back of the back bumper, with a prominent dip at mid-waist height. Rear side markers with a slotted and segmented look were seen. Finally, the tail lamp assemblies were now integrated into the rear bumper, which was also restyled for the 1970 facelift. Brilliantly styled to look completely new, but still unmistakably Chevrolet. The station wagon choices for this year were quite extensive in the midsize category. The base car was the Nomad, available only with the 250 inline-six engine, and only with 6 passenger seating. It was not affiliated with any other series. It was its own model since the 300 nameplate for passenger cars was dropped in 1970. Wagon sales for all the domestic automakers were huge, so Chevrolet planners wisely retained a base model 4-door for people who didn't need any frills, but they still needed a wagon. All wagons this year got the dual-action 2-position tailgate as standard fare. The wagons, as well as the El Camino, rode on a 116-inch wheelbase, while the passenger cars all came in at a 112-inch wheelbase. The Chevelle name was used for the base models. Interestingly, this base series wasn't available until mid-year. This series had 9 models, the main difference being the factory-installed standard engine for each, either a 250 cubic inch straight 6 or a 307 V8. Larger V8 engines were available optionally, but a customer had to first buy the base V8 equipped model. The Chevelle series could be had as a 2-door hardtop, sports coupe, a 4-door sedan, a 2-door sedan pickup, which was the way Chevrolet identified the El Camino, and 3 Greenbrier wagons, with either 2 or 3 seats. The next series in the hierarchy of mid-sized offerings in 1970 from Chevrolet was the Malibu. Included in the series were 13 separate models. These were by far the most popular, and were offered in more body styles than any other series, with either a 6 or an 8-cylinder engine to meet the needs of the vast majority of Chevrolet customers. This series included a 2-door sport coupe, a 2-door convertible, the El Camino, a 4-door sports sedan hardtop, a 4-door sedan, and a concourse 4-door wagon with either 2 or 3 seats. Finally, the Concourse Estate 4-door wagon was only available with a V8 and included simulated wood grain panels on the sides and tailgate. As was the case with the Concourse wagons, 2 or 3 rows of seating could be had. This car looked at home, hauling Little League players around and then driving out to the country club for a round of golf. Another interesting option existed for the V8 Malibu called the Malibu 400. Chevrolet only advertised it in one print ad, and so even they were unsure of the car's success in the overcrowded muscle car market in 1970. Or perhaps they didn't want it competing with the SS cars. It was an LS3 engine producing 330 horsepower. All the usual colors and options were available, but it didn't really project the image of a performance car. No, these cars were sleepers in the purest sense of the word. They undoubtedly won more than their fair share of street races against naive competitors. There were very few ever built, and they're very unusual to find today. In my opinion, these cars would have been the most fun Malibu to have back in the day. The availability of the LS3 option was announced by Chevrolet via a letter to their dealer network in October of 1969. Just a few weeks into 1970 production. The letter also announced the availability of the LS5 and LS6 options in the Malibu line. The announcement of the immediate discontinuation of the 375-horse 396 was also mentioned in the same letter. Was one sentence directed at Malibu customers where it stated that, quote, "Please be advised that effective immediately, the LS3 engine for Chevelle, El Camino, and small wagons may be submitted for regular production," unquote. So how cool would a Concourse Estate wagon be to have with the LS3? In some of my research materials, it states that the new 470 Monte Carlo is also part of the Chevelle family. Technically, that's true. The Chevelle and the Monte Carlo share many similar components, but Chevrolet marketed them as distinct and separate models. Neither car is in the other's factory sales literature, although many optional items like paint colors and interior trims were the same. Throughout Chevrolet's history of the Super Sport, or simply SS, many different models over the years proudly wore these names interchangeably, but for 1970, Chevrolet had the Camaro, the El Camino, the Malibu, the Monte Carlo, and the Nova, all identified as SS models. The mighty Impala would last use this nameplate in 1969. Many new standard and optional features were added to the Chevelle line for 1970. There are nearly 100 separate options listed, as well as specific packages of popular options bundled to save buyers money. Some of the standard items that year included GM safety features like front seat head restraints, a collapsible steering column, side impact inner door steel beams, a heater defroster system, a hidden antenna integrated into the windshield, an automatic front seat back release for rear passengers on two-door models, a fingertip windshield wiper control, and other features for appearance and convenience included all vinyl interior trim in every series and model, a cigarette lighter, and front armrests. Color choices for both the interiors and exteriors of these restyled automobiles were vast. According to the original sales catalogs, the Chevelle line had 15 colors available, but a PPG color chart I found shows 19 different colors. The discrepancy is probably due to a few promotional colors offered mid-season to help boost sales. This was a common practice in those days for all the auto companies. These colors could also be combined for various two-tone color combinations for certain models, and there are just too many to list. Interior color choices and trim motifs were also quite extensive, but there were 5 basic colors: black, white, dark blue, dark gold, and dark green. Back in 1970, vinyl tops were a popular addition to many domestic models. The Chevelle was no different. The same 5 colors were available to correspond appropriately to the main body color and interior color. Convertible tops were limited to black or white. Incidentally, the power top option existed until about April of 1970. Now, on to the engine choices, which were quite extensive. Let's start with the 2 standard engines for the inline-6 and the small V8. The 6 was called the Turbo Thrift 250, and it reached 155 horsepower, while the standard V8 was the L14 TurboFire 307 two-barrel at 200 horsepower. Other V8s available optionally included the L65 TurboFire 350 two-barrel at 250 horsepower, the L48 TurboFire 350 four-barrel at 300 horsepower, the LS3 Turbojet 396 four-barrel at 330 horsepower, the L34 Turbojet SS396 at 350 horsepower with hydraulic lifters, the L78 Turbojet SS396 at 375 horsepower with an aluminum intake and a Holley-supplied 780 CFM carb, the extremely uncommon L89 Turbojet 396, which was essentially an L78 with aluminum cylinder heads, still rated at 375 horsepower. The LS5 Turbojet SS454 with hydraulic lifters at 360 horsepower, and the LS6 Turbojet with an aluminum intake and a monster 780 CFM Holley carburetor, solid lifters, and many other mostly internal performance goodies coming in at 450 horsepower. This was the highest rated horsepower engine during the classic muscle car era. But as we all know, it was undoubtedly much higher, as were the vast majority of cars from the classic muscle car era. An interesting note here about all the various 396 engines in 1970 is that during my research, I found that these engines actually displaced 402 cubic inches instead of the 396 that had powered various Chevrolet cars and light trucks since mid-1965. The 396 was actually redesigned in the late 1969 model year to now displace 402 cubic inches. There are several reasons I found that this happened. All seem plausible, so I'll let you decide. The first is there was a brief strike at the engine plant, so raw castings remained unfinished for some time, causing cylinder walls to rust, which then required a slight overbore to remedy. The second explanation is that there was a problem with the casting molds, requiring an overbore of 0.031 inches to correct. Finally, until the start of the 1970 model year, General Motors stopped enforcing their self-imposed mandate that most of their cars not exceeding 400 cubic inches of displacement unless it was a special performance package like the earlier Hurst Olds. That was history for 1970 when no new GM car was limited in engine size. However, the most accepted reason is the SS396 moniker had been around for 5 solid years prior to 1970. So GM really saw no reason to suddenly market it as an SS402 along with their new SS454. Only 3 separate models, the V8 Malibu Sport Coupe, the V8 Malibu Convertible, and the V8 El Camino were mandatory to order as base models to get the SS package. There were 3 SS options: RPO Z25 for the SS396, RPO Z15 for the LS454, and RPO Z16 for the LS6 engine. Of course, there were other model-specific things a buyer got as standard equipment for the SS package, like special identification badges in the center of the blacked-out grille, the right side of the special insert for the rear bumpers on these cars, which Chevrolet called a resilient insert, emblems above each door panel, and on the steering wheel horn pad. Front fenders had the SS emblems as well as the engine size below, either SS396 or SS454. Except for the LS6 cars, which were standard with a cowl induction hood, the other SS cars had their own domed hoods, and if cowl induction was ordered, the option also included sports striping and hood lock pins. Sports stripes could be added separately to the domed hoods, but I don't think hood pins were available with the optional stripes, at least according to several sources I found during my research. It's not possible to convert a standard SS hood into a cowl induction hood. Inside the SS, front bench seat was standard, putting the 4-speed shifter on the floor or the automatic shifter on the steering column. However, a customer could specify bucket seats and a floor console at extra cost. With the console, the shifter for any of the available transmissions would now be floor-mounted. An in-dash tachometer was also part of the SS package, but its marked RPM red line depended on which engine was under the hood. All SS models had the heavy-duty 12-bolt rear axle, and there were several available ratios and positraction options. Underneath, a performance-grade heavy-duty suspension smoothed the road and helped in instantly hooking up the immense power of these cars, while power front disc brakes with rear drums brought the styled chrome Magnum 500 wheels and F7014 raised white letter tires to a halt. Other tires were optional. You got a lot of bang for your buck with this package, allowing buyers to add many convenience and safety options to their cars. It's my opinion that this particular year is the most popular A-body Chevrolet among enthusiasts. As a collector of die-cast cars in several scales, I can tell you that the 1970 Malibu and Chevelle series is represented very prolifically, especially SS models. There are also various 70s models that are often seen in TV shows and movies, even today. When looking at aftermarket parts suppliers, everything from a cigarette lighter all the way to a full custom frame are just a click away to send anything on its way to you. Even complete bodies are available, since nice, rust-free originals, even non-SS cars, are getting to be very expensive due to their rarity and desirability. I hope you've enjoyed our closer look at the beautiful mid-size cars from Chevrolet for 1970. What a way to end the 60s and begin the 70s. Tell us in the comments what year Chevelle is your favorite and why. Also curious to know if you learned something about these legendary cars that you didn't already know. Be sure to check out similar videos we've done that you'll also enjoy watching. As always, thanks for watching.